Hello and welcome, everybody. It is time for finals yet again here at DAFGL, and boy, do we have some big stuff coming for you this weekend. But Paul and I are here for one thing. Well, I'm here for one thing. You're here for two. We got Overwatch up first.
Yeah, today we're here for one thing. That's what we're looking at today. Tomorrow will be Rocket League and Modern Warfare, but today we're focusing on Overwatch, something you and I are pretty familiar with, Dora. I think at this point, some familiarity with Overwatch, I dare say.
Moderate amount, experts a stretch.
That's just, it's hard to call us an expert in anything, Dora. But luckily, these players are probably going to be better than we are at being experts at things. I don't know where I was going with that transition. I'll be honest. Already scuffed. But luckily, the players aren't scuffed. There we go. I hit one good transition. Oh, it's already a mess. But we got two amazing teams. They've worked their way through the entire bracket. I'm super excited to see these two play. I mean, first off, E-Kittens United, great name. One of the best names I've seen in like any game I've casted in 5 years. And then we have a little bit more serious, down-to-earth AFG Bravo.
I mean, for all of the fun in their name, E-Kittens United are nobody to play around with. This team has plenty of experience in their roster. Whether you're looking at their ranks in general or their previous history, having won multiple tournaments within the general military space, and then coming into this one being pretty much the favorite to take on AFG Bravo. AFG Bravo have their work cut out for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, E-Kittens United I'm going to struggle to not laugh every time I say their name. But E-Kittens United
long day, Paul.
Just quite a bit of experience, like you were saying, right? They played in the Toys for Tots Marine Corps fundraising tourney where they got first. They also got first in the Air Force Gaming Community Clash. So no strangers to victory here, whereas AFG Bravo, a little bit less experience when it comes to at least organized tournaments playing as a full 5-player roster.
And hey, I got a hint here to AFG Bravo. If there ever is a time to come in and try and beat out a team like EKU right now, the time is right now. The meta's diverse. We've had a patch hit. Everything's fair game. And I think that's the perfect opportunity to come in, bring compositions of your own, try not to mirror, and take the fight to them.
Almost everything is fair game, it's fair to mention. We are on the live patch, folks, but no Lifeweaver. Not necessarily that we were going to see much Lifeweaver today anyways, based on how the first, week or so of Lifeweaver has been going. Not necessarily the highest potential pick at the moment. Needs a few changes before we really see Lifeweaver in competitive play, but quite a few changes of note as well. Things like the Brig, obviously, the Brig note's going to be notable for most people, but even then, right, the point is that there's flux in what you can pick and what is viable right now, and I'm really interested to see what sort of styles these two teams go for heading into our game today.
And I think that's going to be the name of the game, right? How do they match up stylistically? Do you have two rush teams? Do we have two dive teams? Is one of these teams particularly flexible? Is one of them bringing a unique pick, right? The one thing that did come this patch that might be relatively notable is the small Rhine nerf that definitely puts them a tier below Ramatra. Ramatra is, I think, going to be pretty influential over this, just given his flexibility over the course of maps. If teams want to be more rush-centric, they need to have that in their sleeve for when the Reinhardt might not be as applicable.
Yeah, agreed. There's a lot fewer instances where I think you can get away with the Reinhardt now that he's gotten that little bit of a change to his health pool. It doesn't necessarily strike you as much when you just look at the numbers of it, but just that little tweak in what's armor and what's health really does impact the matchup, especially when you look at what was picked alongside the tanks in those matchups. I think of something like the Mei, which is going to be that initial burst of damage is going to be reduced a lot more by the armor a lot of the time. So certainly a little bit more difficult to get value out of the Reinhardt now. But Ramatra, I'm excited for. Obviously, there's a lot of options when it comes to the sort of dive compositions that you were talking about, right? Winston, D.Va, Wrecking Ball, I think those all have their certain place in the meta right now, depending on what maps we go to, of course.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned D.Va in that, too. Within pro play, we've seen her kind of spurt up here and there when people don't want to take the Winston mirror specifically. Not as good into the ball, but if we see either of these teams come out on ball, that's a relatively large surprise. It's an extremely difficult composition to pull off, even for professional teams. Try and pull out here is crazy, and look at what Drunk Potatoes got locked in. They have gone the whole kit and caboodle with the Zenyatta, with the Tracer, with the Sombra. Coordination is key here for AFG Bravo, and it's not going to be easy. But if they can do that, if they can meet the skill floor of this composition, which is extremely high, E-Kittens are in for a tough run.
We start off on Busan for our grand finals of the DAF Gaming League. I'm really interested in this Zenyatta. VHIL is going to have a tough time if he's not careful going up against another dive composition of E-Kittens United. I mean, look at Dart. He's already so deep into the backline. AFG, they're getting stuffed to this choke.
Stuffed isn't it yet, though, because EKU are pushed up. AFG can surround them, and that they have. Drug Potato shooting from the back, looks for a swing through, does just enough damage, but not enough to make a team win the fight. Support's down. That's gonna be a loss for the red side.
And that all comes because E-Kittens United are running the Lucio, right? You get the faster rollout with the Lucio. Dark Q Fox and Griffin, they're able to get up so much quicker compared to the rest of AFG Bravo, and getting stuck in that choke is so difficult for something like a Kiriko or a Zenyatta. So now the swap over to Brig, a little bit more defensive, I like it. Still not very mobile though, so still a pretty viable dive target, although those changes, I mean, once we get a rally up are potentially helpful, but before that, still a struggle for AFG.
As they dive through, yeah, they see that exact same struggle once again. They do trade out Cyber Pilot, but for the tank, it's just not a worthwhile trade here. EKU, especially with the ults coming up, are going to have no problem cleaning this fight up.
It's all about choke control right now for E-Kittens United. They're really just having a ball sticking right at the choke points. Sure, the Pulse Bomb whiffed, but they're already most of the way to the Kitsune Rush, the Blade, the Primal. They've got a lot of good ults, so what I need to see from AFG Bravo in this next fight is honestly kind of just a junk fight. I'd like to see them run into EKU and force them to use more ultimates than they need to. If you can get 2 out of these 3 ults, you're set up for the next fight, and then you can start to snowball.
They set themselves up for the 3rd time now. Dive looks pretty decent here, well coordinated, but Sandra just can't find the same target. Water gets shut down by the Blade from Kuhaku. EKU remain in control of the map, and honestly, it looks like first point in general here.
Yeah, and it's only the 1 ult as well. Very difficult stuff. I mean, Rig is trying. That's both supports gone, but it's just not enough punching power by himself, and they're going to go down too. So going into, I mean, this is last fight territory now, and AFG have barely gotten up to ultimates. They've just grouped up and waddled their way through the same choke point 3 fights in a row and given so much AoE damage over to EKU. Now they're stuck in the Mega Pack room. Oh, it's done.
Yeah, immediately going to go. The rally's going to give them a bit more survivability in situations like this, especially with those new break changes, but I don't think it's enough in the face of the Kitsune Rush. There's so much sustain here from EKU, and they still have the sound barrier to be the trump card. There it's out. And AFG Bravo on the back foot now are looking for a way to hide from the rest of this ultimate, but they simply don't have the tools.
Yeah, I mean, a few measly points here for AFG. Is that actually enough to get them another recontest? The minefield stalls even longer. EKU are more concerned about cleaning up some of these stragglers right now than they are about flipping the point back over. So respawns are back for AFG.
But they're all so set out as individuals. If you're not seeing that coordinated Sombra Tracer ball dive that you really need, Classical's going to give them a pick, try and bail them out. But still, the position here is quite desperate for the red side. They'll pop an EMP to try and keep things in their favor. But it's not over yet. They need the DPS to finish off those health bars, and they just refuse to go down.
EMP requires the utmost coordination. Water through that one just to try and keep up tempo, but there wasn't any focus fire from AFG onto specific targets, and now they're running out of steam. They just don't have anything left in the tank.
Yeah, and as that goes through, point will flip over. EKU should be able to close this one out off the base of that, but I mean, let's talk a little bit about what happened there, because it was pretty interesting. Once things broke down, AFG Bravo have a composition that does play well within that chaos, but EKU stuffing them into that choke over and over and over again. It's definitely not something you want to see, especially from a ball composition, something that should feel pretty free to move around the map. Blade here will be popped by Kuhaku, though, just trying to finish things off, and yeah, no problem doing that. Mines will be but a deterrent to them holding on to this point for a moment. EKU, though, go up 1-0 with the sub-map.
A great start here for EKU. Sound barrier gives a little bit more life to AFG, but I don't think it's enough. They need picks now more than anything. With the Kitsune Rush bolstering the ranks of EKU, it's just not looking very possible right now. That being said, AFG are at least hard to kill once they get to the objective. This is the 2nd time already they've had an absurdly long stall, but they just can't turn that stall into anything else.
Yeah, that is one of the big highlights of this competition, though, right? Is even if, you know, you maybe bringing it to the table and not hitting that maximum ball comp potential, if you can get to the point, if you can cause that chaos, you're going to create some really good situations for yourself just due to the survivability of the comp. I mean, everything there lives forever and ever and ever. And you can really make these control points go on a while. You saw they got the one flip and got 55% off of it or so. Like, that is not negligible.
And it goes to show that, like, although eKittens United got a really strong start to the first round when we were in downtown, I don't think the gap here is massive, right? I think that this can end up being a very solid match, especially I like that we're seeing the Lucio to start for AFG Bravo, and they're pivoting their composition quite a bit. No longer the dive, now trying to dig in a little bit more.
Okay.
Torbjorn Bastion. All right, sure.
Run it.
All right, there we go. Hanzo swap. A little bit more reliable, I have to say. Bastion is all fun and good, but difficult to make work once that turret form is gone.
Consistent pressure the Hanzo should be nice. Both teams, though, running the Sigma means that things are going to slow down a lot here. A lot of it comes down to shield pressure, pulling out resources from the supports. I have to give a big advantage to AFG Bravo right now, just off the fact that they're running a Zenyatta instead of the Brig.
It's going to make Dark Q Fox's flight much more difficult, and it sets up Rig and Water to deal quite a bit more damage. I mean, you can already see Dark Q Fox's shield is not doing well at all, but I think AFG have been a little bit ambitious stepping up this quickly. They do have the one pick. Kuhaku down gives them a solid chance, actually. They should be able to muscle their way forward.
EKU are on the back foot. The second you press tab, you look at those compositions, you know it. There's far more damage coming out of a Torb Hanzo comp than an Ashe Sojourn one. And on top of that, you have the Zenyatta to push it even further. As long as they don't overheat here, which it looks like they might, they're going to be all right. Immortality Field gives them a place to reset on the point. They'll get the first flip.
First point is huge, but they need to be able to survive, and they've used their second rotation Immortality Field much earlier than EKU have. Cyber Pilot gets to cover too. That's so detrimental. Those Immortality Fields are so important. EKU, they play the long game, they disengage, they give over 17%. But I love the awareness from EKU that, yeah, they're using all of their resources, they're dumping them all in at the very start of this fight. So yeah, they get one pick. But if we just wait, we wait those 17 seconds to come back in, we'll have such a more advantageous position.
And let's be real with ourselves, waiting 17 seconds is no easy feat. Dark Fox deserves a lot of credit for the heroics in that fight. Now they get to hold a position that's much better. That Brig can play a lot safer. Sigma's the only one who has to put himself in danger in this situation, whereas AFG Bravo have got to walk through a choke point into a poke composition. It is not pretty, but they have the Implication Matrix to help them out, and a couple more tools coming up, but the same thing can be said for EKU. We have a Flux on deck who have the Implication Matrix of their own, and they won't even need it. Viho falls. Transcendence in his back pocket, still burning a hole.
Oh, yeah, not enough first damage off the Ant Matrix, unfortunately. Ant Matrix is a massive threat, but it's most threatening in the first second after it's used, in that reaction time period, before teams are able to fully disengage. Dark Q Fox does a great job of playing behind the drum, where the increased damage really doesn't matter. Still in line of sight of the healers, and the DPS from EKU are able to poke at Drunk Potato, who now has swapped over to the Winston, trying to play a little bit faster against Dark Fox on the front line now.
Which is interesting, considering that you're playing into the team with the Brig. You're playing into the team with the Sojourn. Like, this is definitely less optimal. You had all of the advantages in terms of damage, in terms of long-range output to play into EKU. I don't think you should just call it after one fight, but the swap here is clearly desired by Drunk Potato, just wanting to get some pace on the board. Fortunately, that pace is running straight into the damage that's offered up by EKU's comp.
An odd bob here. It does make the rotation to point a little bit more tenuous. AFG, I mean, their supports are the ones who are having to go up and try to contest and trigger overtime right now. This is done and dusted.
Really well played by EKU, though. You have to look at that first fight. The patience, the willingness to trust your DPS to put the damage down there. It really is a fight that lies on a nice edge, especially between Sigma compositions. But to come in and show that you're willing to play that, even understanding that there's a difference with the Zenyatta and the Brig, you're effectively playing a man down in those fights. Brig is only worth the juice boxes that she can throw out in those situations, which really isn't much. And they still managed to get through. So really impressive stuff by EKU. Shows a lot of mechanical prowess and a lot of confidence in their own play.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to put a little asterisk on our first map here. Keep in mind, this is a best of 5, right? So we'll play plenty more after this. We're going to go on to Hybrid next. And Control, especially in tournaments like this, is very first fight favored, right? I
Absolutely.
mean, even at like the highest levels, when you look at the Overwatch League and stuff, if you win the first fight on any given round of control, you are so much more likely to actually win the round in its entirety. But being able to snowball the way that EKU were able to on both rounds, both Sanctuary and Downtown, it's such a boon here. So there were moments where I was excited about things AFG were trying to accomplish, but it can be so hard to play into these defensively set up compositions, especially when you're playing into the Sigma that's set up with a double sniper on a crossfire, right? Like, EKU are playing very well, and that makes it even harder to come back from a deficit.
Yeah, I think in maps coming, they also have the opportunity to get that map picking, change things compositionally. Busan is a map that's pretty tough. That dive map was definitely hard. Running the ball comp it took a lot of guts, and they did it pretty well. I like the positioning that we were getting out of Drunk Potato, especially before those fights. But trying to fight through the hallways into a team like EKU is going to be a really hard time pretty much all the time. Whereas now, look, if I'm to put my money on a team going anywhere, anytime for hybrid maps, your money's definitely on Kings Row, and maybe they want to shift things to more of a rush look and get away from the things that they've lost in the mirror on.
Yeah, I mean, assuming Kings Row is our second map, which it often is.
That's not even a stretch.
I actually don't know if necessarily Kings Row would be the best option, considering what we saw from AFG, right? Because they'll be able to select the map. So I'd actually like to see them take this elsewhere. I'd like to see them take this to a map that more so favors those slower compositions, right? Not the mobility comps, the dive comps, but something more akin to the Sigma and the Snipers. I enjoyed the idea of the Hanzo, right? So Midtown, Eichenwald, I think those are going to suit AFG better than, hey, let's just go to Kings Row because everybody plays Kings Row.
I mean, it's a comfort pick for a lot of teams, and for good reason, right? It's a great map, but the question is, what do they want to do compositionally? I think EKU on Kings or on something like that have the opportunity to continue with the Winston compositions that they looked really good on, which could kind of undermine that rush mirror that maybe they're trying to work their way into should they be throwing things at the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah, which is why I think Kings Row and even Eichenwalde, I think, are going to be less favorable for AFG. I'd love to see a Midtown pick here. I know agree. Midtown, compared to Eichenwalde and Kings Row, maybe not as favored by most teams, but I think compositionally it'll fit them a lot better. You get, especially when you get to like the second point, right? If you want to play the Sigma, you want to play those long-range compositions, Midtown's a great map for that.
Yeah, honestly, there's a lot of options here open to the teams. I do think that one thing that I want to see from AFG Bravo that doesn't have much to do with composition, it's got most to do with just what you could kind of see in their play. It's that confidence that I was talking about.
Yeah,
I think swapping to the Winston was a very big tell there that they were not comfortable in a winning position in this series, right? They got themselves to a good spot. They took one loss in a fight that looked pretty even for most of it and just kind of called it. It's like, you were so close. You just have to have the guts to stick with it because they were in an advantageous position. All they've got to do is teeter it over the line.
I think I would have liked the Winston swap more if it had been a wholesale comp swap. You know what I mean? If it was like, okay, guys, we have one fight left. We just used our best ults. Let's swap onto a comp that plays completely differently and try to dive the backline. But instead, it was like just Drunk Potato who swapped over to the Winston, and you still had mostly a long-range comp for the rest of the team. Not synergistic, particularly, right? Not those characters don't want to do the same things. Hanzo doesn't want to do the same thing as a Winston does. So if it had been like back to like the Sombra Tracer and they try to just completely dominate, burst down the backline, right? Especially when you're playing against a sniper composition, you know, Ashe, Sojourn a little bit harder to dive onto, of course, but Baptiste, right? These are viable dive targets if you're playing in a coordinated setting. It just looked, what's the word I'm looking for? It looked like an audible they weren't ready to call, essentially.
Yeah, and it does make you worry a little bit when you see those audibles being called so early in the series, right? I always talk about the big red lever on the wall that you want to pull when your team starts losing, and it's big, it's shiny, but it's dangerous. You've got to time it perfectly when you go for those big swaps, when you go for those big change-ups. And first map definitely isn't it, but they have an opportunity to restabilize themselves, like we were talking about. Go to a map pick that's theirs. They can dictate the compositions a little bit more. Busan's definitely one of those maps where the compositions are almost pre-dictated for you when you're going to certain maps, and you feel like you have a little bit less control. And like something like say a Lijiang Tower, where it's a little bit more open to interpretation on a few of the maps, like Night Market, like Gardens, where you get teams kind of show their true colors and you'll get mixed matches that aren't mirrors. And maybe that's the goal for them. Maybe they want to get into a mixed match game where they can feel like they're not having to go head to head with people all the time. But that's for them to choose, and I think that's a very important choice for them to kind of bolster themselves with and feel comfortable around. As we say it, we're heading into the next map, and it is Midtown. Paul, your prayers have been answered.
Let's go. Midtown time. Man, it's been a while since I've seen Midtown, too. E-Kittens United will be starting off on the defense. They're just going to, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We just won with the Sigma. We just won with the snipers. Let's keep it going. I like this decision from EKU. Interested to see what AFG bring out here on the attack. This first choke is really what you have to break, right? So there are quite a few different ways to break it, of course. You can play rush and just run past it. You can play dive, send a tracer behind, and split the attention of the defense. Pharah would be an interesting decision for AFG. Not unplayable here, certainly.
I like it.
But against Ashe and Sojourn, little tricky. A little tricky. You have to get the perfect angle of engagement.
It's tough, but I'm here for it. Again, we talk about not running into the mirror. They're bringing unique stuff. A lot of damage between the Bastion and the Pharah. The difficulty is going to be finishing off the last little bits of those health bars. It's a lot harder than it looks. You have all of this damage just spit out, but none of it particularly precise. A lot of it just spam. So as the rockets fly through, as the sleep hits, Warhead's got a tough time. Ooh. Yeah, he can't lock it down quite well enough there. Gets taken out by Griffin, and now the high ground reclaimed by EKU. They'll push away the rest of AFG.
A really deep position there from Warhead. It's hard for Classy and V-Hill to turn that corner fully and get line of sight on Warhead when you have the long range like Koaku and Griffin playing off angles and sniping onto the back line. It's so much pressure on them, so they weren't able to keep Warhead up. And Classy, of course, is mostly going to be pocketing water, so it's really just V-Hill who has to dump heals onto Warhead in engagements like that.
And VL did do a good job in that engagement. Hit a critical sleep, but again, the critical damage that this team can do is not quite as lethal as it may seem when you see the actual damage numbers, because finishing off those elims is so hard.
I mean, the nano's already up, right? VL's doing work.
Yeah, they have the tools to actually get it done. What are they throwing it down on? Water's not a bad shout in situations like this. Trying to boost themselves over the train real quick. It's one direct, but the second, not quite there. Griffin will fall, but it's traded for Warhead, and without the tank, you are as good as done. A couple, maybe stragglers here would be nice, but DPS HP bars are just too low.
Swap over to the Reinhardt now. I want to see a full commitment, right? I want to see AFG all go in all at the same time. Water poking from this long range, I mean, it's fine, right? You're getting like some splash damage in, but it's not reliable to secure eliminations. I want to see Water use this barrage, get in their faces, and guarantee some kills.
Hard agree. I mean, it's something we've been seeing out of a lot of the Pharah players, whether it be Yazan or Labda. Nanoing the Pharah, throwing it into a barrage is a big play, but alas, not to be had. They throw it on the Reinhardt. He makes a ton of space, but V-Hill goes down. Thinks they've done more than enough to secure themselves a fight here. Well, Griffin has something to say about it. Overclock was popped. Did get themselves a little bit of value, but enough players remain on the point here that it's going to flip over forever. Bravo.
Yeah, the res comes through too, right? So V-Hill right back in the mix, lickety split. Took a little bit of time, but solid cap here for AFG Bravo. They only use the nano and the artillery from the Bastion too, so they're still going to have a lot of good ults. And oh, what a pick. Cyber Pilot thought he could get the contest. Not allowed.
Not to be had. EKU on the back foot. I want to see AFG Bravo actually make a really early move here to claim high ground while the Lucio's gone. Are they going to do it? It looks like they're thinking about it, but I guess not. Water can pressure from the side, though, here pretty readily. Now getting this high ground gets more difficult, though, especially once there's 5 players up. The barrage is a lot harder to hit without the help of that nano boost.
It's a good angle of engagement, though, right? Very quick for Water to get right on top. You see AKU are so focused on Water. They know, but they don't know about the Shatter.
Oh, the Shatter connects, too. The shield went out. It's just a touch late from Dark Fox. It's still got the firepower to push through here, though. The Pharah can't get in. Neither can the Bastion. We're stuck on low ground.
Oh, again, AFG, the timing is just 1/10 of a second off. Loved the Shadow, loved the positioning, but I don't think it caught Ricey, or if it did, Ricey got up so quickly, and there wasn't that immediate follow-through, that 10th of a second follow-through. Immortality Field comes up, and that Shatter is basically just landscaping work instead of an actual fight win at that point. Water not even going to keep the barrage. Instead, swap over to the Cassidy now. I like this, though. You're going to be able to play up with Warhead more reliably. You're less worried about the enemy hit scan, too. And now you can just go for a full rush.
Rushes in on the high ground, 5v5, but Amplification Matrix critically up here for Reese, who can do a lot of work with it after having just been subbed in. You can see him all backing up into the corner. I don't think Warhead's ready for what's about to hit him. Should the Amp Matrix come out.
Nano available.
Does it? It doesn't. Reese goes down with the Amp Matrix. The tool remains unused by EKU, an uncharacteristic mistake from this team. They've got the ultimates to close this out, fortunately. But it is far closer than maybe it should be, and if Dark Fox goes down, it might even go the other way. Warhead and Classical are able to clean it up. It's just Kuhaku on the high ground who remains bound to fall sooner than later.
Yeah, the Gravitic Flux there didn't quite get all of the characters that it needed to, right? It wasn't as valuable as it could have been. Classiel is able to kite Warhead around a lot of the damage and get him on top of those squishy players like Griffin. Still not much high ground control, though, going into this next fight. AFG, they were lucky in that they didn't have to use any ults, but they're gonna have to dump Nano or Sound Barrier at the start of this next fight.
I would love to see them back up and reassault the high ground. I would love to see them push these players out. Just get them off as quickly as possible. Fighting from low here. You're completely surrounded. The Amplification Matrix is free. Warhead's getting shot from like 10 different angles at the same time. 100 HP backed into a corner. This guy is not having fun playing Overwatch. Not today. Sound Barrier will save them as they manage to push out. They've actually got EKU pretty split up, but that also means that EKU have AFG surrounded. Griffin taking advantage of those angles, take down Water, but Dark Fox down means there's nothing to contest Cart. AFG just skip it across the finish line before falling.
Narrowly do they sneak that one in. EKU actually taking this fight. It's just no one was able to contest the objective. Love the decision from Warhead there, right? Recognize that the Amp Matrix, if he just stands there and takes it, not even the Nano is going to be enough to sustain through that. So instead, makes a risky play, pins through it, and then holds shield, trusting that V-Heal will get around the corner. Gets the heals up in time to sustain long enough for the Sound Barrier to come through, and just narrowly AFD are able to get through that fight. Risi already down here too. EKU are not going to want to take this engagement, and they're not even going to be able to pressure for any of these ultimates from AFG, so still a lot of momentum for our attacking team.
Risi falling first again, not the greatest look. EKU has been forcing up a lot of space based on their backline getting picked off, which is crazy because AFG are playing anything but a pick composition right now.
EKU just need to group, go for this fight all together. Oh, what a tasty little pick, though. Oh, that was so well done.
Somebody ban him from the spawn room. He's using up the number of times he can keep doing this. Just getting targeted down by AFG Bravo. It's not necessarily his fault, right? The peel's got to be there from the team and such, but time and time again, it's his name in the kill feed. Griffin backing up, looking to bail out EKU, and he does. 2 kills should be enough, especially having found the Ana in that chaos.
Yeah, I mean, Warhead tries to go for the sacrificial play, but it is too little and too late. Griffin has been making good use of this Sojourn so far. The last overclock, a little bit of a whiff, right? But that one was absolutely baller, and honestly, in general, the railgun has just been hitting. Those picks are what EKU need, right? They need to be the ones finding the stragglers. Instead of letting Risi die on the fringes of the fight, they need to be going for these picks that aren't behind Warhead's shield.
Take high ground first, AFG Bravo. You're still pushing it into Zenyatta, though. It's a lot easier said than done. Diving onto Kohaku, he does manage to get the Bob off.
Yep.
Is there more, though? We're shooting at a Bob and a kinetic grasp. Shatter connects for Warhead, shooting at them at least one. It's going to be 2, actually, at the end of the day. A messy fight and a late transfer from Risi. It's becoming a bit disastrous. You need to trade these kills back now, especially for the ultimate investment that we've seen from the blue side, but the damage just isn't there.
How is Dark Fox even alive right now? How is he still alive?
I have no clue, man.
Finally will fall.
Right?
It is overtime, notably, so just one fight EKU need. Rally is a great stalling tool, but what is going to be the difference maker? Somebody's got to touch. Okay, Cyber Pilot gets there.
Oh, the stun bash connects onto Water. Can't roll.
Oh, no.
No way.
No.
Not like this! Cyber Pilot, you were doing so good!
0 to 3.
That's a raw C9. That's as
raw.
organic, grass-fed, home-raised as they come. That is bona fide Charlie Niner.
Gordon
Having
Ramsay
been brought
would be
out in the
very
finals.
unhappy with how uncooked that C9 was.
Yeah, dude. Hats off to Cyber Pilot. Played it well. 2 kills off the back of the rally, but man, that is a brutal one to give away.
And there were 2 other players too, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Woof, woof. Not much else to say about that. Sometimes you just
Let's talk about how it got that far,
Charlie
though.
the Niner.
Because
I mean,
EKU showed dominance in map number 1. The fact that there's a full cap in map number 2 is insane, especially considering the compositional musical chairs that AFG Bravo played on point A, switching from basically everything under the sun. To be able to pull that out is huge. And you have to look at the backline for EKU that's getting picked time and time again by the likes of Water, who's been so accurate.
And I think it goes to show that the compositional musical chairs, as you called it, that we saw like on Busan and a little bit early on this map as well, there's the fine line between musical chairs and being adaptable is whether or not it works. And AFG, I think we can call that adaptable, right? What they were running, what they wanted to run in the Farah, the Orisa, just didn't work for the first 2 minutes. So they swap the composition, they go for something a little bit faster, and it's able to get on top of EKU, put a lot of pressure on Dark Fox, and Reese, Cyber Pilot, they hardly knew where to play. Now it's matched, rush for rush though. No Lucio to bolster Dark Fox though. Instead, still that same backline of the Brig and the Zen.
This is a really hard matchup because the Brig can't play into the Ramatra, the Ryan can't walk on the Zenyatta, so that Discord Orb is basically just going to go unanswered. I don't know how well this is going to work out. The composition seems to be fantastic for EKU, tailored perfectly to counter AFG Bravo, who want to sit behind the Reinhardt and Poke. Warhead's job right now is to just sustain and live, but it is a very difficult job, one that he has done valiantly though, as it's bot time for Rig to find 2 picks.
Poor Kohaku totally stuck back there. That's a staggered pick and everything. 1 minute already gone. And something you have to keep in mind is, yeah, the Ramatra didn't get like that slight health change, right? It was Ryan instead. So I'd argue Ramatra is favored in this fight, but you do still have to be careful when you are using that Nemesis form. Dark Fox popped it very early. It gets him a lot of ult charge, but also makes you super vulnerable if you don't get a pick with that Nemesis form. Generally, Ramatras will wait until the shield pressure becomes too much, until Warhead has to play further back. But with an Ant Matrix now out, I think he's feeling fine.
Fire Strike 2. The Ant Matrix is just time. Oh, it is a pick, actually. Griffin has been found. These squishies have been going down pretty fast. Shields can block this. The pin pushes them away. I don't think Annihilation wins you this fight, to be completely honest. Yeah, Kuhaka goes down. You don't have enough damage to actually pick off those health bars. EKU starting to look a little worse for wear right about now. Rig, though, overheats. Reese able to pick up off the back of it. Transcendence to bolster the fight to try and secure it. The Shatter connects onto 2. Cyber Pilot hits the floor. Now it's AFG Bravo deep in enemy territory. EKU are unable to fight their way back, though.
Oh, I almost loved that bait at a commitment from EKU. They use the rally and then they use the Annihilation. It pulled valuable ultimates out of AFG, Sound Barrier, and the Molten Core. If they had just left it there, I would have been happy with it. But they keep the commitment going. They invest Transcendence, and Warhead knows, okay, well, yeah, I mean, you can heal, but the problem is I can just shatter and insta-pin Cyber Pilot into the wall. You can't heal that burst damage up. Great work from Warhead, who's been honestly a menace in this front line.
That's far easier said than done. Darjin, this is beautiful. It completely separates away Dark. Oh, you have to be aware of Diana, though. Was not aware. Now trying to regroup with the team. Another charge to get back in position, but this may have been too little, too late. He can reset his health bar on this high ground all he wants. But it's EKU who have the angle on point, and with it, they're easily able to leverage it into a fight win.
Yeah, okay. Warhead was maybe feeling it a bit too much. Had been getting
it's the right play if you don't get slept. You know?
I don't even know if I agree with that, right? I think it would have been fine, especially considering the time. Just letting the rotation come through. It wasn't really valuable to pin into that position unless the rest of AFG was going to be following Warhead. If the rest of AFG is following up on Warhead's, like, forward positioning there, it would have been fine, but they were already worried about earlier people who had rotated through the alleyway, and it was just very split from AFG Bravo. Still a pretty good hold on first point, though. Oh, this is deep. Already the Immortality Field used, and it's not going to save you.
Wow.
Stick around, VHill.
VHill got beamed, dude. That guy hit the ground like a sack of potatoes. AFG on the back foot now. Without a lot of heals. You need to win the fight quickly. Classical needs to get this team in. They need to be fighting as soon as possible, but they're on the back foot, and they refuse to fight, staying far back, taking the damage, being surrounded by EKU, who swiftly descend upon a weakened team.
I think with VHill dead so quickly, that's the right call. Sure, you could try to turn the 4v5 with the Molten Core and the Sound Barrier, but why bother? You get another at least one, probably 2 fights here, considering the speed of your composition with the Lucio. So Sound Barrier and Molten Core are going to be much better in the following fight. You do have to be careful, of course. Griffin, again, that overclock has been very good about getting picks with it.
Trojan for Warhead, definitely the right move. Hits it as well onto the Ramatra, who immediately pops in Nemesis form. Sound Barrier to bolster the push now for AFG Bravo. And Rig takes his base beautifully. High ground belongs to them, but remember, this cart's been pushing the entire time. Really good stuff from EKU. Even if you lose this fight, you've made the space that a one fight would have given you anyways.
It was super cheap, too. AFG actually used fewer ultimates than EKU did. Both the Annihilation and the Valkyrie get invested during that fight. So now Dark Fox going to swap over. Oh, no. What is it? Okay, Baptistes are just cursed. Baptistes are just cursed here. That's an aggressive shatter.
Did Warhead just chump check Dark Fox?
Yeah, I don't think it worked.
The insta shatter when they swap Ryan is always a funny one. Works out nevertheless. You can do some work on the high ground though. It does have a pocket, and oh my god,
nice
the one-man
slide.
army. I suppose 1.5, 2 man. I don't know how many you count the Mercy as, but it's enough.
I mean, that's why Cyber Pilot is on this Mercy, right? Mercy looks weird in this composition. You've got the Ana, you've got the Rhine. It looks like you should be playing something like a Lucio. But you just pocket Griffin. Griffin does so much.
Yeah, Dark Fox with a pick as well. Should open up this fight beautifully to keep the cart rolling into C. Now you're looking at time bank, which is super critical. Finishing with time for EKU is absolutely the goal.
Finishing with over a minute is going to be difficult, though. So even if EKU manage to complete this point, it's likely that we go into overtime. So then the question is just how much time can they keep on their clock? 4 ultimates for AFG Bravo. They've got to use these to effectively stall. I want to see the Amp Matrix put pressure on Dark Fox's shield and then keep that pressure going with the Molten Core and the Deadeye.
That's the thing, they are incredible stall tools. All 3 of them.
Exactly.
Zoning ultimates. So being able to chip off these last 41 seconds before we force ourselves into a draw scenario is real.
Sleep Dart shutting down the Deadeye. Insane. Ricey's been nailing these Sleep Darts.
I mean, we're applying a lot of pressure right now. The zoning ults don't come out. All 3 of them are still there except for the Deadeye. But they just don't pop the ults early in a proactive play from EKU. That's in a beautiful position. 20 seconds is what we're looking at. Remember, finishing with over a minute is the goal here for EKU. And AFG Bravo backs against the wall, have all the tools to try and put a stop to it, but they've got to get out of spawn quick. They have got to get Shmoov and Paul.
I mean, all they have to do is touch. Use the Sound Barrier right now and touch, and you'll get at least under that minute. VHill dead instantly!
Did you get the Implication Matrix out and the Sound Barrier landed, though? We're under a minute, Paul. Even if it's a loss here, even if it is not a hold, it's still a decent enough position. AFG Bravo have managed to hold themselves neutrally in terms of time.
Bro, Rig's saving that Molten Core for the next map, dude. He's had it for 3 minutes. Had it for 4 fights. It's brutal, too. It would have made it so much more difficult for EKU, especially in overtime, to stay on the cart. A 36-second advantage now for E-Kittens United going into extra innings.
I think it's just smart, honestly. I heard Molten Core stocks only go up, so holding on to it is definitely the move there. Rig.
I don't know. I think the market's... Look, I know we're in Midtown. I think the New York Stock Exchange is a little far for you to run that one over and try and invest it. I loved seeing EKU swap to just the straight-up Rhine head-to-head, too. I feel like Dark Fox was doing a much better job, just understood the matchup better, right? It's one thing the advantages Ramatra theoretically gets in a matchup versus Reinhardt when, like, both players are playing 100% proficiently, right? It's another thing for just comfort. Reinhardt's been in the game 6 years, right? You're gonna have more experience on the Reinhardt 99.99% of tanks, right? Dark Fox definitely looked more comfortable going head-to-head in that matchup, blocking more shatters, being able to like get shatters himself, escorting players like Griffin forward, and of course, I think it just gave more protection to Ricey too, who was able to survive much more consistently playing behind the shield.
Yeah, Ricey dying, I mean, basically on cooldown for the first half of the map was a big loss, but it seems like they've really tightened up the ship and keeping him alive.
Ooh, TP to point.
Water, TP, where's it going? What's the game plan here, Water? TP is going somewhere.
Oh, no.
Everyone's through. The point has been secured. Now you're surrounded, though, by Ashe and a Sojourn. If Dark Fox can just live here, if you can just survive, you're in a good spot. You've got to find that sim. They take down Water before the beam reaches level 3. That's the composition and the strategy pretty much completely undercut pretty well by EKU, who just used the high ground calmly. Dark Fox understands his job is just to live there.
The angle of that TP is a little bit awkward, right? The setup lasts long enough to where EKU know what is up before the teleport actually comes through, and the spam damage gets rid of Rig. And without that Bastion, there was never any chance that EKU were going to be able to, or that AFG rather, were going to be able to stick on that objective. Now they've got the Bastion though, and Dark Fox has to be careful where he plays.
Definitely preemptively throwing out the wheels, definitely a little bit earlier than they should have. Dark Fox calmly backs away, plays point. Rig can't cover enough ground to get there, and it's just a sitting duck to be shot at by Griffin and Kuhaku, who still lie in the wings, raining terror from above. EKU have gotten back up on their horse after that full cap from AFG Bravo. That is readily apparent, Paul. The question is, can AFG Bravo do the same? Can they find a hold here?
Initiating match.
It's going to be difficult. Minute and 36 seconds. I mean, if EKU play at the same pace AFG did, that's 3 fights to hold not even 2 ticks. And EKU, I think, were a little bit fortunate in that first engagement, right? The fact that they pick off Rig really assisted them. I think there is absolutely a world where if Rig survives, AFG are currently escorting the payload through second point. But because Rig dies, the gambit AFG chose ends up falling flat. You have 2 choices when you only have a minute on the clock. You can, on Midtown specifically, right? You can either try to go for the positional advantage and rotate and force players off of the high ground that you see EKU set up on, or you can go straight to the point and try to hold strong. Without Rig, holding strong was never going to happen. And then in the second fight, you don't have time to go up to the high ground, so you have to try and force the point, but they know what the jig is now, right? The jig is very quickly up for AFG. And now the question is can they hold this position as solidly did their first time defending? Rig staying on that Bastion. You have to be smart about when you are using the Sentry form, when you choose to apply all that pressure onto Dark Fox.
ZKU look to switch in. They got their work cut out for them. It's much easier said than done. If they can get the wheels out from Rig, they're going to be in a great spot. It's up to Rig to hold on to the wheels for as long as humanly possible. Seems like he popped them pretty early, so now EKU just careen forward. But that cooldown now having been sapped away, the threat of the wheels from Rig is arguably more important than the wheels being used. It seems like that small detail has just been missed. EKU now diving in on the second cooldown of wheels. Rig just has nothing to protect them. A quick cap for EKU and a quick 2-0 setup as we head into what is now a match point map.
A phenomenal start to this series from AFG Bravo. The first appearance in a DAF Gaming League finals or a competition at all for a couple of these players. Or actually, wait, it's E-Kittens United. I'm dumb. Phenomenal start for E-Kittens United. I swear I can read Dora. I swear, I promise. As they look to add another first place to their belts. There we go. That's the right story there.
Yeah, it was beautifully played. Honestly, by both sides, you've got to give credit where it's due. They managed to turn it around a decent amount, but it's not enough. The compositional swap as well that we saw from EKU, I really like. They found counters pretty much everywhere and tightened things up, like that backline getting picked off time and time again.
And I really want to give a shout out to Griffin. I mean, we saw in the play of the game, we saw in that last fight, the pressure Griffin is able to put out on the Sojourn is second to none. Picking water out of the air. This is going to be just a Griffin highlight reel, very likely here. Insane stuff on this Sojourn. And it's interesting, too, because you think Sojourn, the head-to-head into the Reinhardt, well, you know, Sojourn gets less railgun charge off of the shield. It's harder to get these reliable picks, right? But Griffin was constantly finding valuable off angles and using the jump to get up and over Warhead's shield and annihilating so many of those squishies that are just trying to take cover behind a shield that really isn't big enough to do what they wanted to do. So Griffin punishing this composition, punishing the pace that AFG played at as well, right? If AFG are a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more confident, like you were saying, right? I think Griffin struggles to find that same value, but you recognizes that they're not just holding the W key, they're not forcing fights like most teams would with such a quick composition, with an aggressive composition. So Griffin is able to pry at the fringes of all of these defenses and unravel them entirely.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's a difficult thing. The composition itself, while it works for them because it's comfort, it doesn't work in theory, right? Lucio Ryan wants to speed at the back line.
Yeah.
Torbjorn Cassidy wants to try and poke away. The Cassidy can kind of do either to some degree, but the Torbjorn definitely wants to stay back and poke. Meanwhile, the other side is often running something like the Mercy or something like the Zenyatta that you need to be running at in a lot of these situations, but the Torbjorn's kind of anchoring you back. I wouldn't mind if we saw Briggs stay on the Torbjorn and just dive in with them, but I think you're right in seeing that the pace, if you're going to run that Lucio, has definitely got to be through the roof. As we head into a map number 3, that's the game plan. They got a halftime to talk about things, but we're going to send you guys to a quick little intermission before we head to match point. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you got the orange slices that you need for halftime and your water bottles are nice and refilled. What are you saying no at? What's this, Paul?
You and your orange slices. How many people do you know who
you
actually
are the
use
only
the
person on this planet who
slices?
knows that I might use the same thing to come back from every single halftime break I've ever thrown to.
Me and
so
Harris,
yeah,
me and Harris.
eat your orange slices and eat your heart out, Paul. We got a map number 3 coming up in this series and a match point in our hands.
I'm excited for map number 3, right? Escort is going to be the name of the game. Map 2 was so much closer than map 1 was. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And it just goes to show, like I was kind of saying at the end of map 1, control can very quickly be snowballable, right? You win first fight on both rounds. That's the map a lot of the time. But Midtown was so close between these two teams. Even when we saw like the compositional musical chairs, as you call it, sort of settle and fall into that Reinhardt head-to-head, the rest of the comp's still somewhat tumultuous, right? We can't really decide what the DPS are going to be for either team. We can't really decide what the supports look like for either team, outside of Griffin on the Sojourn and then a Mercy Pocket. I'd be cool if we saw that, regardless of what composition E-Kittens want to play going into our map 3.
Yeah, and map number 3, I think if we are going to stick on these compositions, there's one thing I do want to request. I think we swap the Lucio for Zenyatta, like every day of the week. If we want to be a little bit more sedentary, if we want to chill back, swap it to a Zenyatta. That's just free value that you're missing out on if you're not going to use the Lucio to engage. You're missing out on so much. And speaking of next map, it's going to be Dorado. So the likelihood that we get those same compositions actually seems pretty slim now, looking at the map choice.
You know, honestly, any of our 3 maps, it would have been somewhat slim, right? Like maybe Rialto is the most likely, debatably.
It's pretty likely. Yeah. I'd give a good
Circuit
one.
Royale, I don't want to run Reinhardt on Circuit.
I don't want to play against Eakins United on Circuit. Not with that DPS line. Not with those Sojourn player.
They're constantly on the like double sniper. Yeah, pass.
Yeah,
Big pass. Instead, go over onto Dorado. I think the Sojourn Ash can still pretty comfortably work here, right? My question is, what is AFG going to be running? You know, we saw a little bit of Hanzo earlier when we saw more of those long-range compositions. Of course, way back at the start of map number 1, they tried to run some dive compositions, which, of course, are going to be very good on Dorado, assuming that, you know, you have your mechanics set right on the Wrecking Ball. If you want to run it, Winston a little bit more reliable. Winston and Diva a little bit more reliable on Dorado. So still quite a lot up in the air as we go on to our map number 3.
I'm kind of rooting for a Winston here, and I want to see it alongside a Pharah. I think even if you're running into the double hit scan, I think you still get away with it if your tank player's making enough space appropriately. If you're applying that pressure how you should be and kind of in tandem with one another, there's enough rooftops here, and there's a reason why Pharah has had its prominent moments. And if it's something that they are comfortable on, which it seems like it because they wanted to roll out on it, then I think they should stick with it.
Especially first point, right? First point, I feel like, is where Pharah has the best time because there's so many different places where Pharah can peek out from cover. You get to second point, it becomes a little bit more difficult unless you have like a Winston that's willing to go up and synchronize with you to assail the defensive high ground.
I mean, that is but you should be doing that
But
regardless.
you should be doing that. Even then, it can be a little bit tricky depending on what composition the defense play, though, is what I mean. I would certainly not be against the Pharah, especially when we see AFG roll out on the defense. I do want to see a little bit more of an aggressive Pharah, though, right? When we saw Water on it briefly at the start of Midtown, it was very like, don't worry, guys. One of these rockets will hit. I'm throwing them from downfield. Yeah, I'm getting splash damage. Oh, what? Nobody dies? Ah, darn. Well, shoot. I want to see, like, follow-up. Yeah. That synchronization that we need to see off of the Pharah, right? Either the front line, being the tank and the other DPS, are following up on the splash damage that Water deals, or Water is getting in their faces and following up on the initial burst of damage that like a dive can have, depending on what tank we see, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have follow-up, the Pharah is not worth much a lot of the time.
Yeah, and looking over at the other side of things, I think EKU we don't have to talk much about. They've shown their literacy on Winston compositions already, and to see them run a ball would be actually pretty surprising here, but Dark Fox seems lined up for it.
I do want to look over at AFG right now, though. Water on the Echo, I'm even more cool with this than the Pharah.
Especially with
Echo,
the ball.
Yeah, especially with the ball. I think Echo has all the best qualities of Pharah on first point Dorado and very few of the weaknesses against things like snipers, right? I'm expecting this to just be like a quick pick on the Widowmaker and then swap back to the Echo as more of a commitment. At least I want that to be what it is.
We can all believe. But either way, dive composition's out for either side. And ball is the choice, interestingly enough. The thing about ball on this map is that you can live for quite a while. The health packs are actually pretty good for you. The downside is that you cannot occupy the high ground at quite the same rate that the Winston can. The Winston can jump up, drop, bubble, jump up, drop, bubble. Pretty much on cooldown. Water going down first. That's a quick one. But the ball doesn't quite offer the same presence that the Winston does in its ability to hold on the cart or hold on the high ground, respectively.
The rotations just take a really long time to set up, right? Like, you see Drunk Potato going all the way back and around to try and set up this one dive. Doesn't even get anything out of the pile driver. And even if he had, Knees is not a super vulnerable target on the Kiriko. So it's hard to break defensive setups with the Wrecking Ball here as reliably. Meanwhile, Dark Fox is quite literally having a ball. Excuse the egregious pun, but the guy can just sit on the cart, go right back up to the high ground, get healed, do this rotation over and over and over again.
I do like this a lot more from AFG Bravo. Fight the high ground. Die the high ground. This is not fight the ball time. This is not look at Dark Fox time. This is send all 5 members of your team careening up towards this Ashe, towards this Kiriko, towards this Brig. And
it'd work if they
the main goal.
It'd work if they sent all 5 at the same time.
Like
there, it was sort of just Rig and Drunk Potato on like a quick drive-by, and then Rig and V-Hill had like overcommitted. The idea is there, though.
And there's a pick. All right, Knees getting a little bit aggressive towards spawn. V-Hill's traded out, though. Spawn advantage does dictate that this is an advantage for the red side, but we're yet to see it actually work out that way. Rig and Water fall, and with that, the odds of taking this point.
At least this breaks the defensive setup, right? Because of that spawn advantage you were talking about. Okay, he's fine. Drunk Potato's fine. AFG will get some progress. They'll break this initial setup. And I find it's easier to at least get on the back line in this second area as long as V-Hill doesn't die.
Oh, V-Hill just keeps running into that wall, man, praying that somebody shows up through it. That is a tough one as a Kiriko. Griffin, though, 2-piece on the pulse bomb. A third is thrown into the kill feed by a Rig, offering up his donation to the pulse bomb pool. Unfortunately, the advantage still lies in the hands of EKU, who's just twice as large.
V-Hill has been being very aggressive thus far. Like, we talked about how AFG aren't really playing like they're necessarily as confident as they should be. V-Hill has taken all of that confidence and is up in EKU's face in these last couple of fights. Riggs popping over to the Torbjorn. I mean, I don't know how. At least it'll give V-Hill a little bit more cover, right? You put the turret down, it makes Griffin's job a little bit more difficult. But the turret doesn't do much against the massive health pools of Dark Fox.
Not for now, at least. Water with the dupe in on a Brig. This is...
He actually chucked the Brig down to the rest of his team.
That's... you just got gapped on a character that I didn't know was possible to gap on. That's crazy.
Oh, no. Oh... AFG scrambling a bit. They've only got a minute remaining here. They gotta try and force cart, surely, right? But how do you force cart against a defensive minefield, against a defensive Kitsune Rush? Used at their spawn!
You know what? I'm here for it, Paul. Everything's out the window. EKU, we talked about confidence. This is it. You can find one more pick off the back of this, or even put themselves in a decent position. Drunk Potato struggling to get through that walkway, but does do it eventually. Puts this team ahead.
EKU overheating a lot there, using the Kitsune Rush where they did, and then charging forward past the Kitsune Rush to try and spawn camp AFG. A minefield will stall and even gets V-Hill.
That would not happen if V-Hill was not already in the back line at that moment.
The enemy back line.
Doing a good job of making space, though. It's actually allowing the team to push cart in a tricky situation. His health bar is low, though. As long as he gets out alive, you can call it decent enough profit, but he won't. That will not be the case. Kitsune Rush managed to jump to try and re-up themselves in this fight to get themselves some way to dig their heels in, but in the face of EKU, who simply don't care about your ultimates, OT will burn down. And the line in the sand has been drawn. AFG Bravo must hold halfway through A.
What a wild but effective decision to use the minefield. when Dark Fox chose to, right? You think, oh, well, it's just Dark Fox. It's 1v5. Why are you using the minefield here? Because he knows he can catch V-Hill and stall the rest of AFG. They're not able to get through the choke point. They get staggered coming back from spawn. Dark Fox's Wrecking Ball has been such a nuisance for AFG thus far in Dorado. And then it becomes such a difficult situation. V-Hill died, has to come back from spawn, has to use the Kitsune Rush. So shallow, so far away from the objective, right? Ideally with the Kitsune Rush, you want to use it forward so that you're taking space, so that you are putting pressure on where the enemy team is standing. But that ends up being like the stairwell right outside the spawn doors. You don't get any space out of that. You're zoned out of the ult, and EKU can just disengage away from it, wait for it to expire, and then come back and clean you up. Phenomenal defense from EKU. Now, unless AFG get the fuller hold, EKU are going to comfortably add another trophy to the shelf.
I do like the tools, though, that AFG have brought to do this. Maybe coping a little bit, but I think we can still analyze this for what it's worth, because Drunk Potato swapping over to the Winston gives them more of that cart presence to stop the push from coming through. V-Hill potentially could land reses that give the spawn advantage back to the defending team. Not the worst of choices coming out, and it seems like when the rubber hits the road, when they get under pressure, AFG seem to perform.
All you need is a pick, though, right? That's why Kohaku is on this Widowmaker. One pick, one grapple shot, one player out of position. And that'll spell the end of it. I mean, Griffin dying doesn't help the cause for EKU, but they have plenty of time. They don't necessarily
Where
need
is
to commit
Cyber
to
Pilot
these.
going?
Cyber Pilot and Knees are over
mission.
in this corner.
Oh,
can you punish
They're
this?
just like, they're chain healing each other. The Kitty going, bringing a two-man army. Yeah, you're going to fall eventually. Okay.
Yeah.
That was definitely some rough positioning, not backing away to the rest of the team. Dark Fox coming out of the Wrecking Ball as well makes it tougher. The DPS are trying to fight their way through Sans healers.
AFG recognizing that the supports were caught over in that corner is the only reason that they're able to hold there. 1 minute burned away, but still quite a bit left. Kwaku's still trying to pick at the fringes with this Widowmaker. I need to see like a more aggressive line, a more aggressive angle for Kohaku here to try and find picks up on this high ground.
He's already in a bit of a rough spot. Now everyone's back at the high. This is the exact same thing we saw last time. Everybody's backed into that one corner, supports-wise. Do you manage to fight their way out? No! Rig takes one down. The counter dive is beautiful from AFG Bravo. Now almost 2 minutes been chunked off of the clock. Okay, it's time for the Widowmaker to go.
Yeah, it's not finding anything.
You're on camera now. This is your one and only chance to get this kill before we demand a swap. Okay, Kohaku. Yeah, backs away to spawn. This is almost definitely going to be a different character being locked in.
I've really loved this defense thus far from AFG Bravo. They've been recognizing their limits very well, right? Drunk Potato is not overcommitting. He's waiting until there are vulnerable members, and then AFG are coordinated in assailing the backline. Dark Fox does go over to the Diva. This will make Drunk Potato's job a little bit harder, and oh, it's even harder now that you don't have a Mercy.
Yeah, V-Hill going down first as well means that there's no res on the table to potentially bring the team back into this. AFG now recognize that things are going to get difficult. They need to make their way out and try and hold on to the choke point with the ultimates that they do have, because they have great ultimates for holding on to a choke point.
They don't overcommit, though. They cycle back to the objective, and now we're going to dump their ults in. Beautiful work.
The Death Blossom takes down Griffin despite the defense matrix of Dark Fox. They have all the tools to do this, though.
Oh, no.
EKU, the sustain through with the rally, eat all the ultimates of Bravo. All they got to do is get through this Primal Rage, and it looks likely that they're doing that as the cart careens forward towards the Illa Box of victory. They can taste sweet, sweet wins on the other side of this choke point. FG, what do? Can they regroup? I don't think so. That Winston is as good as dead, but he just makes it out.
One last touch here. Self-destruct zone off the cart, though. As soon as this bubble drops, AFG, how do you stay on the objective?
I'm not sure they're going to try and sustain. No, they don't even sustain. They just drop the bomb. Say good luck. It immediately catches out Rig. E-Kittens United have set themselves up beautifully to take away a win here. All they got to do is finish off the final health bars, and that they do. V-Hill down. Cart moves forward, and a 3-0 is a series outcome.
E-Kittens United, a deserved win from them. Constantly adapting, constantly finding the holes in AFG's game plan. Here's the Kiriko diff. At least you got something out of this video. But what phenomenal work. I especially want to shout out Dark Fox at the very end there. I think where map 2 was very much like Griffin kind of taking over in a lot of fights, this map was Dark Fox refusing to give AFG an inch, right? We saw it defensively on the Wrecking Ball, and then moving over onto the Diva for the attacking side. I thought when 4 alts got dumped all at once, at the very least, that fight should have been it. Right? At the very least, AFG, you'd think when they're using Kitsune Rush, Death Blossom, Valkyrie, Overclock, right? All at the exact same time, you'd think they'd be able to win that fight. And it starts off well because the instantaneous nature of the Death Blossom gets one pick onto Griffin, who doesn't have much health. But then Dark Fox's position with the defense matrix soaks the entirety of the rest of the damage. All of it. Every single bit that was pumped out. And suddenly, you know, you've used everything. There's no gas left in the tank. AFG, they floored it straight into a brick wall made by the defense matrix of Dark Fox. And then, of course, this last play, the self-destruct. Beautiful zoning. Gets one as well. There's nothing that you can do there. Dark Fox with a phenomenal map. And EKU with a great series.
Yeah, they've done a fantastic job getting themselves this far. And I mean, look at their trophy cabinet. It just continues to fill up, Paul. Crazy. I don't think it's the end for the other side, though. For Bravo, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done. This is their first showing at any of these events. So in future events, you expect them to continue to rise.
I'm excited to see them next time, right? I feel like the bare bones of a lot of ideas were there. They just need to congregate a little bit more, right? There were some moments, especially on that last map. I actually think, despite the fact that it was maybe a little bit one-sided on Dorado, technically, some of the things they were doing on their defense of Dorado first there, I thought were phenomenal. And had they managed to actually get like a more substantial push on their attack, we could be talking about potentially a 2-1 after Dorado, or even a 2-1 in favor of them because Midtown was so close, right? So there's just a couple of these larger concepts, especially compositionally, that I think AFG can refine around the edges, right? The edges are a little bit rough, but you get some polish on that. You take the sandpaper to it, and you make it all nice and smooth. I think AFG can certainly take a run the next time Overwatch comes into the DAF Gaming League.
And it will, absolutely. From June 10th until August 20th with 9 of your favorite games across 11 weeks of summer. Everyone's got a chance to make their mark. Visit airforcegaming.com for more information on that. These teams aren't done, though, as well. We can talk a little bit about what they've won, of course. Patches, pins, hats, jerseys, all being given out to these teams. But first and second place, most importantly, earn the qualification to Spring, combined with the potential to earn TDY for that respective tournament. That's a big thing for these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so for anyone who might not know, TDY, it's basically my understanding. I am not a military guy, but my understanding is
I come from military. What is your understanding of TDY, Paul?
My understanding is it would basically just give them like temporary leave to go play in this tournament. That's all I was gonna say.
Not exactly, but close enough. You're on enough. It gets them to go to these tournaments, and it's very important.
Yeah, maybe not leave. For the point is, it's a LAN. It's going to be super cool. That's coming at you early in the summer as well. So a lot of exciting stuff to look forward to in this. In the DAF Gaming League overall.
Yep, big stuff on the horizon. We'll see you guys for the next round of it for Paul and I today.
Tomorrow.
That's all we've got. We've got more coming out tomorrow. Be sure to follow the Twitch channel. Keep up with everything on socials. We'll see you then.